Very compelling. Let me go to James Whalen, criminal defense attorney, joining you right there in Fort Worth, Gene. James, talk to me about the point that Gene just made. Any firefighter, anybody with some minimal medical training, i.e. or e.g., for example, Shantae Mallard, could have saved the life of the victim, Gregory Biggs. You're a defense attorney, you're handling this case. How do you combat that type of evidence?
Well, it's going to be extremely difficult. Just hearing the fact that her brother is a fireman and she easily could have called him, that's just a really devastating fact that's really going to hurt the defense. And she has enough knowledge, basic knowledge, to maybe give him some assistance and call 911. So that's a very devastating fact against them.
James, what about the defense trying to make an issue out of causation? It reminds me of a case we had on Court TV recently of a man who threw a firecracker into a barn. It started a fire and a bunch of horses died. And the defense in that case challenged the question of whether the firecracker started the fire. I just couldn't believe it. And in this case, look, Shantae Mallard hit Greg Biggs with her car. She dragged him home. A couple hours later, he died. Is there really any question about the fact that in those couple of hours, she could have taken him to the hospital, could have gotten him help, and that could have made a significant difference in the outcome of the rest of his life?
Well, so far it doesn't seem like that they're going to be able to show that he would have died anyway. There was enough time while he was living that they could have got him some help, and unless they can show that even if he had medical help, he would have passed away, then they're not going to make much hay with that.
Let me go back over to Gene, because James Whalen, criminal defense attorney, practice there in Fort Worth on a related issue. James, the idea that this defendant may or may not take the stand, obviously we're not going to know until that happens or doesn't happen, but certainly we know that individuals, friends or former friends of the defendant, have and are anticipated to take the stand. We heard already from T, one of her best friends, or at least a former best friend, who talked about the defendant's conduct that night. We anticipate Cleet Jackson and Herbert Cleveland, individuals charged with tampering with evidence and going to prison because of that, testifying. Are you going to be able to get any mileage out of these witnesses basically being turncoats or having some significant role in the death of this victim for the defense side?
Well, I think you'd be able to get some mileage out of them, especially if you can shift the focus towards them, that they were really the ones leading the cover-up and tampering with the evidence, and Shantae was really just following their lead. I think you can make a lot of mileage with that and really shift some of the blame from Shantae to them, and that they basically just cut the deals to save their own skin, and now they've left their friend hanging out there to face a murder charge.
And Jim, I think that's a really good point, or James, I think it's a very good point. At least I think that's the point that I was trying to articulate that James Whalen did a much better job of right there. That is, if she's in some kind of stupor, and I know it's Harvey.
Thank you for that report, and I know you want to get back into the courtroom. James Whalen, criminal defense attorney from Fort Worth, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, James.
We're going to take a short break.